Welcome to the No Streetlights podcast. I'm Aaron.
And I'm Tim. We'll be engaging in stimulating conversations every week.
We want to encourage societal growth towards kindness through understanding.
These conversations and the associated language can be triggering.
Listen at your own discretion.
But please reach out if we need to be doing something better.
So, let's take a breath, relax, and be welcome.
So, Aaron, who have we found to talk to this week?
I found somebody who was in your life, kind of on the outskirts. She was an extra in your show a few seasons back.
Okay.
And you didn't even realize it.
Yeah.
Until during our brainstorm, she asked what year you graduated from PHS. And then you realized that Amber was a girl I randomly walked up to one day and told to have better posture. So, Amber, welcome to the show. How's your posture been?
It's been fabulous, thanks to you. I owe it all to Aaron in 2009, I think.
Wow. You never know how far your ripples go, Aaron.
Oh, God. Thank you, Shaquille.
No, it's true. It's true. I do. Anytime I catch myself slouching, I'm like, oh, that guy from high school would be really, really upset with me right now.
That random guy who would always walk by at lunch.
Yeah, I like how that's how she remembers you in her head, too. Like that guy from high school. Like,
Yeah. The bald guy.
that's how I
That
remember you,
sounds
too, Aaron.
bad, but well, most friendships I feel like start from like some sort of, I don't know, a more meaningful interaction. And Aaron just kind of walked up and sat down one day and was like, hey, you should really work on your posture. And it kind of went from there. So it really has stuck in my head.
In all honesty, though, like that's an incredible way to make a friend because that person immediately has shown that they automatically care about you in a way. Like, hey, you got to fix your posture. But also that interaction as a first interaction with somebody is so unique that I think they would stick out in my head. Of course, Aaron and I became friends because I kicked him in the nuts while playing soccer. So, you know.
Yeah.
I don't understand how that turns into a friendship. I don't think I would like someone after that.
That's fair.
It wasn't on
It's
purpose.
complicated.
Yeah, it wasn't on purpose. I think it should be stated that I wasn't aiming
And then
for
I
that.
told him his dad wasn't dead, even though he was.
Yeah.
So
My goodness. Well, I have to say though, Aaron did several other things for me. You were a very good friend to me in high school, and you stuck your neck out for me with a Spanish teacher that didn't like me, and
yeah.
I think you gave me some dating advice. So
A couple
it was
times.
more than just posture, but that was really the genesis of the friendship.
Aaron, you gave dating advice?
Yeah, I've been on a date.
Yeah. Yeah. Amber, was the advice good? Like,
Well, ironically, all I remember at the time I was dating a man, plot twist. And I do remember Aaron being like, don't take it too seriously. I don't think this is the one. Do you remember that, Aaron?
No, but like we've said, everything I say to me is normal, and other people it's very impactful. So things that stick out in other people's mind to me is Tuesday.
yeah.
Yeah.
All I remember is just being honest with you.
You're
I
actually
remember
just
you
a
being
crazy
confused,
genius.
and I was like, you probably shouldn't stress. This isn't a thing.
You were so right on so many levels.
Whenever we were brainstorming about season 2, there was something we wanted to talk about, and I wanted to talk to you. Just something was telling me like, hey, Amber is somebody you need to go to. So I said, hey, Amber, I see that you've checked out our stuff. Would you want to come on? And you said, I have no idea what I would talk about. And I said, well, if you just think for a second. And you said, oh, well, maybe about how when I came out, my entire family disowned me. Maybe that would strike a chord with people.
Yeah.
Tim sitting behind me going, yeah.
Yeah.
Was like,
This is good stuff.
what? What?
I'm telling you right now, Amber, whenever Aaron first told me that, my jaw hit the floor. I was like, oh my God, this poor woman, why did she have to go through this? So,
And I have to say, though, I love that in 2023, my story is a rarity. And I love that we are progressing towards being more accepting of different types of lifestyles, especially within the queer community. And we have a long way to go. Like, a lot, don't hear me wrong, like a lot of progress that still needs to be made. But I do love that this is not the norm now. So
we're kind of leaving the audience in the dust because they weren't here for the brainstorm yesterday. So if we start at the beginning,
yes,
Amber, soon to be Mrs. Amber.
Yes.
Could you please introduce yourself?
Yeah, so I guess that's important. So yeah, I was, as we sort of alluded to, I grew up in a small town in West Virginia, and I was raised by a family that was and is very politically conservative, very religious, and frankly, just very judgmental of everyone who believed different than they did. And so I was sort of grew up in this like echo chamber, a very homogenous community, and that was really all I knew. And so then fast forward, I went to school. I went to a small liberal arts school for college. And that was my first interaction with a lot of people close to me that were just different than me. And it was kind of my first exposure to this idea of like, you do you, I do me. Everybody was just so accepting. And I loved that. And so fast forward a little bit more, I moved to Charlotte, North Carolina, and continued my growth as we all do, still in my early 20s. And now I would say I still live in Charlotte, and I am very different than how I was raised. I'm politically very liberal. You could probably even say I'm radically progressive. I'm not religious at all. And as we have also alluded to, I'm a lesbian. And I am a few months away from marrying my incredible, beautiful fiance, China. And we have built just really an amazing life together here. But there were definitely some obstacles to my coming out journey.
I love your story because what we talked about yesterday in our brainstorm session, and I'm going to let you kind of explain it and everything, but I love your story. When did you come out to your parents?
I came out to my parents in late 2020, I think. So China and I worked together. We were colleagues. And I want to back up a little bit and sort of acknowledge, like within my story, I do share a lot of how my community, the queer community, is marginalized and a lot of the struggles that I have faced. But I know your listeners can't see me, but I'm a white woman. I'm very feminine presenting. I'm cisgender. And so there is a lot of privilege within that. So I'm about to tell a story that's a little dark and a lot sad, but I do acknowledge that I have a lot of privilege. So I just want to go on the record for having acknowledged that. Mm-hmm. But yeah, China and I worked together. And at the time that we started working together, I identified as straight. I had only ever dated men, never really thought about dating women or being attracted to women. China at that point openly identified as lesbian. And so I do remember feeling a lot of like things that now looking back, I would now know, like, that's a crush. You have a crush on this person. But yeah, we worked together. I do remember always wanting to like look cute when she came into work, things like fixing my hair. We shared an office. So we worked very closely together. We shared this little glass office that faced the front door of where we worked. And I remember like I would see her coming in and I'd be like, oh my gosh, I got to get cute. I got to look like I'm working really hard. I just remember these feelings of like wanting this person to like me. And that is, of course, we all want people to like us, but that is not typical of me. It's not my usual. So I should have known.
This is a beautiful rom-com you're writing for us.
Yeah. We claim all rights to this, by the way, so nobody can take this from us.
Oh my goodness. Yes. Well, please make it a movie. But yeah, so I guess that went on for some time. And then the pandemic happened. We were both furloughed from work, so we were not around each other. And I remember feeling like I really miss this person. So I remember texting her at one point and saying, hey, I miss you. And so again, these are all things I could share, all these little tidbits, but realizing that I had feelings for her came over a long period of time and a lot of things that I think if I wasn't sort of stuck in this compulsory heterosexuality, I would have known that I had feelings for this person. But we can kind of dive in a little bit more, but we started dating and we decided we were going to move in together. And I went and told my parents.
I love that you said that, yes, you are part of the LGBTQ community. Yes, you have overcome adversity, but you're still coming from a place of privilege.
Yeah.
That's something one of my little brothers hasn't been able to fit that cog into his machine yet. Of even though I have privilege, I still have struggle. And my trials and tribulations are no less real than anyone else's. They're just different. I just don't have to worry about being pulled over because of the color of my skin. I don't have to worry about being shot because I raised my voice at somebody.
Right.
But you've said that even being in the community, you're still educating yourself so you can become the best ally you can be.
Yeah. And I think that was one of the big things that coming out taught me, that I always thought that I was a really good ally to the queer community. And I think now that I'm on the other side and I'm a member of the community, I'm realizing I could have done better. And I think I always felt like I was always accepting of it. Even coming from where I grew up, I was always like, I'm okay with people being gay. I never understood why anybody cared. But I think a lot of us get stuck in that. I thought, well, I'm a good ally because I'm not hateful. I'm not mean to those people. I'm okay with it. And I think now that I'm in the community, I'm like, oh, I could have done better.
What I want to talk about is how terrifying was it to come out? And even before that, coming out to yourself, because you said you've always presented as feminine and straight and always dated men. So how did you discover yourself and your own sexuality there?
Yeah, so that's a great question and something that I think a lot of queer people struggle with. I definitely thought growing up that if you were a gay woman, you had to look like Ellen DeGeneres. Mm-hmm. And I never did. I've always been very girly. I've always liked very girly things. I love hair and makeup, and I wear high heels, and I like dresses, and I love pink, and all those things that society puts in the box of girly are things that I love. And so I think that was why, and because of compulsory heterosexuality, our society deems straight as the default. And especially being a little girl, or where I grew up as a little girl, it was always like, you are on this earth to find a good man and have his babies and take care of the house. And you can have a job, but only if you want to. Like your worth comes from being a good wife and a good mother. And not that there's anything wrong with doing life that way. That's one way of doing life, and people are very happy doing it. And I love that for them. But that always felt like a shoe that didn't fit for me. Like, that's not me, but I could never pinpoint what it was that didn't feel right about that. Like the idea of marriage or the idea of kids was just always like, I don't like it, but I could never figure out why, because I was like, well, I'm not gay. I know that. I don't even think that thought ever crossed my mind. So, working alongside China, having these feelings of like, I want her to like me. I want her to think I'm smart and cute and good at my job, and I want her to be around all the time, was very weird. But I think I went months having these feelings and never being able to align them as like romantic or intimate attraction. Mm-hmm. I actually, funny story. I remember for a period of time having dreams about China all the time, not necessarily sexual, just like dreams. And like we were at the mall together, we were driving in a car together. And I was like, and we didn't really hang out outside of work. And I remember Googling, this is going to sound so ridiculous. I remember Googling, what does it mean if you always have dreams about a coworker? And everything that popped up was like, you might have feelings for this person. You're romantically attracted to them. You're sexually attracted to them. And I was like, well, that's not it, because I'm not gay. So I don't know what it is. Yeah. I mean, it's just like.
I love how the answer is right in front of your face.
In print in front of me in several different articles. And I'm like, well, I know that's not it.
Yeah.
So I got to keep searching.
It's got to be something else.
I do remember the moment that I was like, oh, I like her. And it's so funny now because I'm not really a jealous person, except in relationships. And that's a character flaw and something I probably need to work on. And now that I'm in a healthy relationship, I'm a lot better about it. But in general, like in life, if my friends get something, they go on a date, they're really happy, they get a good job, they're beautiful. Like I've never been the type of person that's like envious of that. I've always been like, I love that for you. But in relationships, I've always kind of been a little like, I want all your attention all the time. I remember China and I had gotten to be really good friends, still totally unaware that I want to marry her. And she was talking about going on a date with somebody. And I was burning with rage. I was like, how dare you go on a date with someone else? Meanwhile, like she is like blissfully unaware that I am like fuming on the inside. And in that moment, I was like, wait a second, why am I jealous? And then it was I don't know why it was that, because there were so many other obvious signs to date. In the back of my head, I was like, ding, 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 there it is. You like her. So I had to sit with that for a couple weeks. And I remember calling my best friend and being like, hey, I think I'm in love with China. At that point, he knew who China was. He knew she was my coworker. And he was like, okay. Actually, I think I sent a text and he called me and he was like, okay, you're not just going to send that text. Like, that's not a huge bomb. Like, let's talk about that. But I think what made it so easy for me to accept it myself at that point is that my friends, I know we all have great friends, but like, I gotta brag, my friends are the most incredible people. Like every single one of them, I sort of did like a coming out train and talking to each of them. And some were surprised, some were like, yeah, but nobody was judgmental. All of my friends were like, okay, that's awesome. Like, are you going to ask her out? Like, what are you going to do? They were just so supportive. And in all of this, they have become my family. And so I think their acceptance and they're just like, yeah. And finally, all of these feelings over the past few months building up, finally being able to put them in a neat little box and be like, yeah, you're attracted to this person. You like her. That made it very easy to accept myself.
That's really awesome. I'm really glad that you have such a good community around you too, because that is a pretty big revelation. I mean, going off of you're roughly around the same age as Aaron and I, so I can't imagine having
25,
that,
I think.
learning so much about yourself at that point. It's just like holy shit, that's incredible.
Yeah.
After 10 years of trying to be at least 10, I don't know when you started dating or whatever, but 10
About 10 years,
of trying to make a shoe fit, and then you were like, oh, well, why am I trying to put gloves on my feet? That doesn't make sense.
Right. No, exactly. And I had some good relationships with men. I had some really bad relationships with men. In every single one of them, serious and not serious, something always felt just a little bit off. And you could say that's because they just weren't the right person for me. And I think that's a big part of it. And I never want to make it like that China's a great partner solely because she's a woman. Like China's a great partner because of who she is and her character. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of women that wouldn't have been great partners for me. But I do remember in all my relationships just feeling like off and it sometimes very like disgusted by the person. And it was very nice to finally get to a point where a lot of those things finally made sense. I was like, oh, there it is.
Yesterday during the brainstorm session, one of the things that you mentioned is there was a guy that you were dating and you had told Aaron, like, he's gross, he sweated on me. I just thought that was so funny.
Yes, I think in all of my times being like intimate with men, it always just felt there was definitely something I was seeking from that. Like I like the feeling of being made to feel pretty or sexy. But now looking back, I was often disgusted. I do remember saying like, oh, they sweat on me, or it just always felt like you said, like putting gloves on my feet. Like it didn't feel right. It didn't feel like what. And I think like being in a Puritan culture and taught to not talk about sex or any of that. And that's a whole other can of worms topic. But yes, it always just felt like gross and wrong. And not, it had to have what felt right and what was comfortable for me to be like, oh my gosh, everything makes sense now.
And that's one big thing that we talked about in our episode with Melissa is we want to battle erotophobia because sex is a very large portion of somebody's life. And it is something that people do probably need to talk about.
Yeah.
Because I feel like you probably could have figured out this revelation a little bit sooner if you felt like you were in an environment where you felt like you could talk about it.
Yeah, I think not being able to talk about sex, I was never taught. Like, my family, I don't think we ever even had like, quote unquote, the talk.
The birds and the bees.
I don't remember ever having talks about sex or intimacy with my family. Nobody ever taught me what consent looks like. Oh. Nobody ever taught me about pleasure. Like, what is pleasure? What is intimacy? What should you be wanting to feel? What is not something that you should feel? And not knowing that, I think you're absolutely right, Tim. Like that, had I known that, I think I would have definitely sooner been able to at least say, I don't like sexual intimacy with men.
Yeah. And honestly, like, so kind of going back to battling the erotophobia as well, it's not knowing like what consent is, or like somebody is never telling you what consent is. That's terrifying.
Yeah.
I really do feel like society is moving in a way where that's no longer going to be a problem. People are becoming more and more willing to discuss sex, but there's still going to be those communities, like what you said, a Puritan community or anything like that. There's groups of people who just flat out don't talk about sex or teach about sex, which is very important. So yeah, definitely probably could have saved you about 10 years worth of dating the wrong group of people.
Yes.
Whenever you realized you had feelings for China, was that when you were like, okay, I'm lesbian, or did you still have to have that conversation with yourself?
No. So I acknowledged that I had feelings for China. I definitely like turned up the heat in our interactions, was trying to like flirt, let her know. But it was not until China and I had been dating for some time. I know I'm skipping over a huge chunk of the story. We can circle back. But we had been dating for some time before I was like, I think I'm a lesbian. And I think that that's a huge part of, I think it's an issue in the queer community, frankly, is that these boxes and these labels, while necessary, I do think it's important to understand different types of sexuality. And unfortunately, that does require labels. I think it's also can be damaging too, because I think I had such a hard time coming to that one, because in the beginning I was like, well, I'm still straight because I grew up with this. It was so ingrained in me that like gay is bad. Gay people are bad. I'm a good person, so I can't be gay. And it was just this like linear black and white thinking of like, well, I'm still not gay. I know I like China. So I'm straight with this one exception. And then it was bi. And I think the reason why I had such a hard time accepting lesbian is because I'm like, well, I haven't earned that title yet. I've only been with one woman. And I knew early on, like, I knew I was going to marry China. I was like, this is the love of my life. I have never been this happy before. Like, this is my person. This is my soulmate. It went so much deeper than gender and her being a woman. Like, this is my human. But I was like, I don't think I get to call myself a lesbian because it's not like I dated women. It's not like I went on a dating app and set my preference to women. I just happened to fall in love with this woman, but I've only ever had experience with men. So I guess that means I have to be bi, even though I know, like, if China fell off the face of the earth and I had to date again, I don't think I would date men. I would probably have a preference for women. But I think that's what made it so hard, because I was like, I found this person different than I'd ever dated before, gender wise. And I know that this is who I want to be with. So what is the label for that?
What do I call myself?
Right. Who am I?
I'm a woman in love.
You talked about how the heteronormative societal pressures lead into that, because you didn't have gay superheroes growing up. You didn't know that was an option.
I'm telling you, I think the only gay person that I ever knew of, the gay woman, was Ellen.
Yeah.
And I know she's like a scandal, or now she's not necessarily a hero or anybody that I look up to, but I definitely didn't think I could ever be gay. I was like, I'm super girly. That doesn't make sense. It doesn't fit.
Mm-hmm. And you were talking about how the gloves on the feet, it just didn't feel right, but you didn't know. And that's because whenever we're told that gay is bad, we don't know that gay is an option.
Right.
And even when I
Exactly.
talk to most women who have said, like, I haven't had fulfilling sexual interactions with men, I say, oh, well, do you have clitoral stimulated orgasms or penetration stimulated orgasms? And they're like, they're different? And I'm like,
Yeah.
well, yeah. And,
Yeah. But again, that goes back to like, we're not taught about pleasure and orgasms. And I even think like, again, I know I'm getting off track and it's a whole other, whole other topic, but like, we're not supposed to talk about our sexual pleasure. Women's sexual pleasure in often how we're taught in heteronormative relationships, our pleasure is second. It's secondary. The man getting off or the man having pleasure is the goal. The woman having pleasure is secondary.
well, the survival instinct of procreation, a woman doesn't have to climax in order to copulate, I think is the appropriate word to use in that scenario. It does help, studies have found. And if you're participating in sex, hopefully everyone's orgasming. But the whole suppressing women, their rights, their bodies, their opinions, their ability to become educated and do whatever the hell they want to do, that shit's long gone. We're realizing that religion should be something that is additive to our life and it makes us better peoples, to where we love each other and we're compassionate. Not that we use our rules to impose on other people's bodies.
Right. Right. We're getting there. We still have a long ways to go.
Yeah. Aaron, what was that quote I think you said yesterday where it's like, sex is something that, what was it? Something like,
Oh, he said sex is something that a man does.
Yeah.
Sex is something that
Oh,
happens
yeah.
to a
happens
woman.
to a woman. Yeah.
I think you said it a little more eloquently than that, but yeah, that one,
he always says
that one hit.
We were talking a little bit more graphically about sex and some things yesterday, and we were contemplating why we felt the different ways we felt and had our different viewpoints. And I said, well, a man does sex to somebody else because our genitals are outside of us, whereas sex is something that happens to a woman. It's something that she very intimately experiences inside her body. So naturally, we're going to have two very, very different views of things. I mean, the hammer and the nail see the board very differently.
yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, that wasn't intended to be a mic drop. One thing that you said, Amber, yesterday.
I was like, how do I follow that?
Yeah. How do I
said-
go on?
One thing I've said every time we've spoken, and I'm sorry that it's taken me 32 minutes to say it today, I am so proud of the life that you've built for yourself. I
Thank
know
you.
that when you came out, the family that you were assigned at birth, they weren't super accepting, and that's lame. And you said, well, the only reason I've got the life I have now is I've been very lucky along the way. And I'm sorry, but I'm calling bullshit. We make our own luck. And you said, it's the people around me. It's the people who've helped me. But I've seen you run, and I know you've done your Shawshank mile, so your shirt's in the fucking mail. You put in the work, you earned this life, so please take a second to brag about it.
Thank you for that. Yes, you're absolutely right. And that is something that I personally am working on, is taking ownership of my success a little bit more. I do acknowledge,
I'll drink to that.
Cheers. Yes, I do stand by. I have had a lot of privilege and a lot of luck along the way, but I have also worked very hard to overcome my upbringing, though I had some great things about my childhood, but then, being disowned by my family and criticism and growing up in just kind of like a very judgmental, singular thinking household community, overcoming that and building a life for myself that I love and am proud of. I will take some credit for that.
Fantastic. Good. About time. Yeah.
Has your family tried reaching out at all? Like, to make amends?
So I guess we can back up and I can share the actual coming out story. That's what we're all here for. Yeah. So China and I had started dating, and we decided after a few months we were ready to move in together. And so that I had been waiting to tell my family because I knew that they were not cool with people being gay. I remember hearing like some of the first curse words that I ever heard as a child was slurs against gay people.
Wow.
Mixed in with some other colorful language. Like my parents were always very outspoken that being gay was wrong and gross and evil and perverse and all of those things that they were good Christian people to acknowledge. And so I was waiting. I was very afraid to come out to them, but there came a point where my love for China and my love for our life surpassed the fear. It was still there, but it was kind of like I came to accept the fact that if my parents are unaccepting, I will be okay because I have this love that is so worth that.
Hell yeah.
And I also think it's important that I was in a place I was not financially dependent on my family. I had my own roof over my head. I didn't, because I think that there's a lot of people, especially younger kids, that they need the support of their family. And if coming out could compromise that, like you have to do it when you feel safe to do it.
Yeah.
I was very lucky that I was at a time and place in my life where I was financially independent. I had my own home. I didn't need their support. I wanted it, but I didn't need it. And so I went home for the weekend. Home was not far from here. And I was nervous and my dad was washing cars, I remember. And I was out in the driveway, half helping, half just like piddling around, waiting. And my parents knew China. I should share that too. Like she had come over to our house. She'd been around my family. She was coming over as like my best friend, but they loved her. Like she and my dad did shots of whiskey together. We did fire pits. We hung out. We watched movies. Like my family knew her and loved her.
Did they know she was a lesbian?
I was thinking about that. I was trying to remember if I'd ever told them that. I don't know. I really don't know. I think they may have assumed that. I may have told them. I don't know in what context I would have told them, but I don't remember if they knew or not. But so we're outside, we're washing cars. And I was like, yeah, so I'm moving, slowly tiptoe into the conversation. I was like, I'm moving. I'm actually going to move in with China. And we're actually dating. And I saw my dad, like I saw the wheels turning. He's nodding his head. And he had a very neutral reaction. He was like, okay. Well, I sort of figured. I was like, okay. So maybe he did know she was a lesbian. I don't know. And he's like, I sort of figured. And that's really all I remember. The conversation was very neutral. I was like, okay. And went inside. I told my mom. She's like, okay. And my mom has multiple sclerosis and there's some cognitive struggles with it. So she doesn't always remember the things I tell her and doesn't always have like a super easy time comprehending them. So she was kind of like, okay. And in the back of I didn't know if she was going to remember. I don't know if she understood what I was saying. And that was kind of it. It was towards the end of the day. We went out to dinner that night. We didn't talk about it, but I personally felt a huge sigh of relief because I was like, I did it. They're cool with it. They're processing. Like, I'm not asking you to like wave a rainbow flag and be like, yeah, lesbian daughter. Like just, they were okay. So I felt this huge sigh of relief. The next morning I woke up, got some coffee. I was sitting in my dad's office. He's reading and I'm getting ready to head back home. And I'm still thinking, I'm sipping my coffee. Like, this is great. China's going to come over with me next weekend and we're all going to be happy. And he looks at me and he says, I'm really worried about your soul and you need to pray. And at this point, I think my parents knew like I was not a Christian. I didn't necessarily believe in prayer in the same context that they practice praying. And I was like, why? He's like, you know why. It was very cryptic and very like scary.
Yeah.
And so I started crying and I was like, okay, I need to go home. It was just, I think it was almost this ambiguity and like dark undertone that was very frightening. So I got in my car, I drove home, and I don't remember that next week. like what I was feeling or what I was thinking. I just remember feeling very off. But what I do remember is that my dad and I were close. We were really close. We definitely did not see the world in the same light. Politically, socially, religiously, we were very different. Mm-hmm. But at that point, we sort of were respecting of each other's differences. And I talked to him on the phone every morning, almost twice a day, every day. We were very close.
Yeah.
And I remember for the next week, I didn't hear from him. He wouldn't answer my calls. He wasn't calling me. It was very strange. But at this point, we still hadn't had like a falling out over it. Mm-hmm. And so in the back of my head, I knew. And I finally, it was exactly a week later, that next Saturday, I remember I think he called me. And I just remember him blowing up. And he was like, "You've done some dumb things in your life," which is maybe true. He's like, "But this is the dumbest thing you've ever done. And if you decide to move in with China, I will no longer be a part of your life. And I don't think I can love you anymore."
God.
And yeah, I don't remember a lot from that conversation other than, I was torn up. I was like, I don't understand. I really didn't. I still don't understand. And I just remember him saying like, I don't think I can love you anymore. And like, just don't do it. Don't move in with her, as if not moving in with her would make me straight again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's going to fix the problem.
Right. And that was kind of it. I waited a couple days and I sent him a text, and it's funny. The only like tie financially that we had to each other at that time was an Amazon Prime account. And it's funny now. I remember texting him and being like, "I made my own Amazon account." Period. That was it. And he was like, "Good." Period. And it's really, it's horrible, but it's one of those things like, it's just stupid.
Yeah.
But yeah, we didn't talk for months. And I do still, yeah, go ahead.
I'm going to let you continue the story, but it is mind-blowing to me, right? So my wife and I have decided to hold off on having kids if we ever decide to have kids, right? And a lot of it comes down to personal reasons and whatnot. But the idea of having a child, right? Like, I can't imagine raising my kid and then at some point for something small, even just cutting them out of my life completely.
Yeah.
Like, I cannot imagine a parent doing that. That blows my mind.
It blows my mind, especially with the relationship that my father and I had. We were close. I'm an only child of my two parents. So we were very close. I was around all the time. And you grow up thinking, or at least I did, believing that the love from your parents is unconditional. Mm-hmm. And I know not everybody has that, but I was raised to feel that way, that it was unconditional love. And no matter what I did, no matter what mistake that I made, that no matter what, my parents were still going to love me. And I think to all of a sudden, like a light switch, your parents say they don't love you anymore. It's like, whoa, like not only was your love conditional, it was very conditional. Like it was a light switch. All of a sudden you just don't love me anymore because of this one thing about me. And it's such a benign thing to me and to most people.
And I kind of want to make a prediction on this. And I don't know if you'll actually answer this or not, but I have a feeling that the reason why his reaction like blew up so much after a week was because he had gone into the echo chamber of his church and hearing, "Oh, your daughter, she's into women, she's a lesbian? No.
She's going to burn in hell.
She's going to burn in hell." And I feel like that's where that anger came from, is because of that echo chamber. And I don't know if you know where that came from, but that's just what I feel like it probably was.
I don't know. I never asked, but I have always assumed the same thing.
Yeah.
That he did some research, Googled what does the Bible say about homosexuality and decided to start forming an opinion. I don't know if he just sat with it. I would love to know what happened in that week, but I've never asked and I never will.
Yeah.
But yes, I would assume also that is what happened.
This is in Melissa's wheelhouse, so we're going to keep bringing her up. Sorry, you're going to hear her soon. Don't worry. But I totally forgot that you were an only child until you mentioned it.
Yeah.
I remember us talking about that in high school because that's one of the first questions is, do you have any siblings? But she said that she's reflecting people's humanity and that really we just want to be seen, accepted, and loved. And I'm learning that here in season 2 because Mike on episode 3 said he's still a scared little boy who's afraid that if people see the real him, they're not going to love and accept him. That's all of us. We're all living the same life. We all have the same fears and insecurities. So why not treat each other with compassion and love each other? Amber, I don't care who you go home to. Does that hurt me? No. Well, then why would I be afraid of how you feel? So I'm sorry that you did go through what you went through, but that is probably the absolute worst option for coming out. And I do need to ask, do you regret it?
No, not for a second. I have never, and that is something I am so proud of because there was an Amber in years past that would have clammed up, said, okay, Dad, whatever you want, I won't move in with China. I will find a man that I want to marry and her that I could stand to marry. And there was an Amber in the past that would have done that. And I never once regretted it. Never even crossed my mind to not move in with China, to not marry her. Never once did I think that that was the wrong move. I am, again, so happy with my life and who I am and my character. And I have this incredible person that does love me unconditionally, that I get the honor of marrying. I wouldn't trade that for anything. I hate that my parents and my extended family now, they don't want anything to do with me because of that. I hate it. I do. I'm not justifying it or saying I'm okay with it, but I wouldn't trade my life to make them happy.
Amen to that.
I love that you're just talking about getting back to yourself, being yourself, seeing yourself, accepting, loving yourself, and building out a community that does the same thing. And you said when you think about your parents and your family and people who don't accept and love you, you didn't say you hate them. You didn't say that you resent them. You said, I'm really sorry that they're missing out on how fucking cool this is.
Yeah.
Like, I wish they could be here with me. And I'm really grateful that you said that because that's a revelation a lot of people probably are going to pull from this. Mm-hmm. If somebody hates you for living your best life, if you hold on to that resentment, that gives them more control over you.
Yeah.
If you just say, I'm really sorry that you feel that way, and I wish that you could be a part of my life, but if you're not, good luck.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I don't harbor any negative feelings towards them. I think, and it took me a long time to come to accept that because I did for a while, but I think that it's even hard to say still, but I really do think that they think they're right and they think that they're doing the best thing for me. They think that they are protecting me. And I still think that they think I'm going to come around and be like, you know what? I do need a man in church.
A man and church.
I need to go to church and I want a man. And I think that that's what they think is going to happen. So I don't think they're trying to be malicious. In practice, it's coming off very malicious and it's very wrong and I'm not condoning it. But I also think that if I had negative feelings towards them or was hateful towards them, it would just exhaust me. I don't have time for that.
No.
You know what I mean? I'm happy. I'm really happy with my life.
Yeah. I mean, you're leading your life is filled with so much love with China and everything that's been going on. There's no reason to dampen all of that with the negativity of adding in like, I'm angry at my parents or I hate my parents because they don't accept me for who I am. You did the right thing. You don't talk to them.
Right.
And I think that's incredible. That's the best way for you to handle this situation. You had the worst possible outcome from coming out. Mm-hmm. And I've heard stories about this and I know it happens and it is so horrible. I cannot imagine, like I said, being a parent and cutting my kid out of my life. That is terrible. I don't care what the reason is. Unless they're doing something that's harming people, you just being in love, come on.
Yeah. And it's so funny too, because I think I told you all, I am shocked that my parents never even suspected it.
I did when you were 15.
You're not the only one.
Yeah.
But I am just shocked because again, I said so many times, I always felt like my parents and I were very close. And the fact that they overlooked this part of my life or didn't catch on to the fact I was so unfulfilled and so, I mean, anxious and depressed even in many of my relationships. And they could still look at that and be like, but you should do that. You know, I never wanted kids. I never wanted to get married. I didn't want any of those things that they thought were the pinnacle of being a woman. And now that I'm in a happy, healthy relationships, like I can't wait to get married and I can't wait to have kids with China. And it's just so bizarre to me that they can't truly accept that as me finally being myself and finally being happy.
Yeah, you've done an amazing job and you have such a beautiful life ahead of you.
Thank you.
There's one thing I want to ask you. If you could go back in time and talk to yourself, what would you tell yourself and when?
Ooh. I could go back to me at any time.
At any time.
I think something that this has taught me that I could have used, oh my gosh, even as a young child. There's people around you that genuinely think that they have your best interest at heart. But deep within all of us, there is an intuition. Like, I know myself better than anybody else will ever know me. I know what I need. I know what's right for me and what's not right for me. And this goes beyond just my sexual orientation. This is career. This is where I want to live, what I want to do on a day to day. There are people that do love you and they think that they have your best interest at heart, but you know what's best for you. And that doesn't mean don't take advice, but at the end of the day, your intuition will guide you. Your intuition knows what you need, what's best for you, what's right for you. And as soon as you learn to hear that voice over every other voice, you will find true happiness. Thank you.
That's a fucking mic drop.
Thank you.
Well, Aaron, do you have anything for Amber?
Well, I'm going to keep being a background actor in your life, Amber.
Please. You're welcome. You're welcome to stay.
Oh, thank you. I feel very welcome.
Yes.
I hope you have as well. And thank you for joining us and sharing your story, Amber. That's super powerful. And I can't wait for us to push this out and keep on.
Yes. Thank you so much for having me and for giving me an opportunity. This is the first time I think I've ever shared like the whole story start to end with anybody. So thank you.
I'm really glad that you are able to share your story. And I really hope that somebody hears your story and it encourages them and gives them the strength and helps them view a situation, or if they're looking to come out or anything like that. I hope they can take what they've learned from hearing your side of the story. And if anything negative does happen with that moment, I hope that they're able to push forward, because there is a light at the end of the tunnel. Even if somebody disagrees with how you live your lifestyle and they don't want to be a part of your life, you're better off without them anyway.
Yes, there is an amazing community within the LGBTQ community. And so whenever you are ready to come out, we are waiting with open arms to embrace you.
Do you guys have like ice cream socials every now and then too?
Yes. It's called Pride Month.
Oh,
there's drag queens and ice cream and beer. So we'll see you there.
The Pride Parade in Rome is absolutely incredible.
Oh my gosh. I know. There's so many countries that do it way better than the US.
Yeah.
Poland was kind of weird because they had the far right militia people on the outskirts that the police were holding back.
Yeah.
So that was kind of a trip to be part of
Oh.
Poland's pride.
We
in
have
the
a little bit
capital
of that
the
here
year I was out
too.
there.
Yeah.
But it will get better. You should listen to yourself. You should trust yourself.
Yes.
I think the books for season 2 might be attached: The Modern Science of Adult Human Attachment Theory and Love Yourself, Heal Your Life, the ones I brought up in episode 1. So we'll probably end up linking those somewhere for the season 2 summary.
I guess I'm going to have to
again-
read them.
Thank you so much for joining us, Amber.
Thank you.
And thank all of you for joining us.
This has been Aaron.
And Tim with
Amber.
A huge thank you to Hyland Markle for the original music.
Send this episode to whoever popped into your head while listening.
Comment below with what you want to hear us talk about next week.
And tag someone we should bring on the podcast.
All pertinent links can be found in the episode description.
Be good to yourselves and each other.
We love you.
Peace!